and welcome to the Brian Tracy and FocalPoint Profit Levers series. I'm so pleased to have Brian Tracy with me today to talk about how to increase our number of customers by 21%, how to drive massive value into our organization in the place it needs to be, and that is at the very top of the funnel, where everything all starts. It's getting in front of customers, getting in front of the right customers, and doing that the right way. Now, before we get started, let me just introduce Brian Tracy to all of you who may not know of Brian, and of course to our team members who know Brian very well, having seen him at conference just a few months ago. Brian Tracy is a world-renowned author and business improvement specialist. He specifically created FocalPoint many years ago as a way to help business owners and executives reinvent themselves and reinvent business and make the business world a better, stronger place. The business coaches who've invited you to this call are part of that team that Brian has throughout the world. And we thank them for inviting you. We're eager to share this information with you and eager to have you apply the things that you're learning here and take the charge in leading the world in change. So Brian, thank you so much for joining us today. Can I hand the call over to you?
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much. I've spent several hours preparing this call to help you because I began my career in selling, knocking on doors, going from door to door. So I know about prospecting, lead generation, and conversion rates. And as the old saying goes, nothing happens until a sale takes place. And we talked before about the most important part of selling, which is high sales. McKinsey & Company did a multi-million-dollar study nationwide for IBM when they were having problems, and they came back and they said, "We found your problem." And they said, "What's the problem?" They said, "The problem is low sales." And they said, "What's the solution?" The solution is high sales. And so what they found is that the key to business success is high sales. The reason for business failure is low sales. And when they asked business owners, interesting point is how important are sales to you? They did a research study on this as well. And business owners will say, "Oh, very important. Most important thing of all, nothing more important than sales. It's the lifeblood of the business. It's the oxygen to the brain and so on." They say, "Well, great. Well, how much of your time do you spend on sales and revenue generation?" I would say, "Oh, all the time. That's all I think of. All day long we work on it." "Well, good." They said, "Well, let us just follow you around with a camera and a stopwatch and sort of track your time usage." And after about a month, what they found was that the average entrepreneurial, small, mid-sized business owner spends 11% of their time in sales on average. 11%. Everything else is taken up with meetings and conversations and lunches and email and electronic interference or interruptions and reading the newspaper and so on. They were absolutely shocked. They're absolutely shocked. You're just simply not spending enough time on sales. Now, I have a good friend who started a business at his kitchen table with two others, and they were just simply offering a business-to-business service. They had been offering it with another company, and the company shut down. So they said, either we just pack it up or we create our own business to offer the same services, and they did. And last year they did more than $2 billion in sales. They have 3,000 employees. He flies around in a private jet, one of the richest men in America. And I asked him, I said, "Well, how do you define your job?" He said, "I'm the chief sales officer." "And how about your two partners?" "They are also chief sales officers." That's all we do is sales. That's all we think about is sales. And that's why the business is so successful. It's because the top people are focused like laser beams on sales. So the starting point of the sales process is sometimes we look upon this as a funnel where you put things in the top and then they go down. And sometimes we look at it as a pipeline or a production line where there's simple steps. The starting point is always prospecting. The starting point is always to find people who can and will buy your product or service within a reasonable period of time. So we say rule number one for sales success is spend more time with better prospects. Spend more time with better prospects. Sometimes I ask my business owner clients, and I do seminars on business growth all over the world. I say, why do you get up in the morning? What is the purpose of getting up in the morning and going to work? I mean, why do you go to work at all? And after they think about this for a while, they finally agree that they go to work so that they can make money, and ideally make more money. So I call this the triple M philosophy, make more money, MMM. So how do you make more money? Well, that's SMS, and SMS is sell more stuff. You make more money by selling more stuff. And so therefore I say, well, your purpose in going to work is to make more money, and that the way you make more money is you sell more stuff. So if you're not selling more stuff, then you're really not working. You might as well stay at home in bed. Is that correct? And they're shocked. Yes, but what about all the little things that we do? No. Everything else you do is irrelevant in comparison with making more money. So every company that is a successful company, and this is based on the work that Neil Rackham has done, millions of dollars of research, the biggest and best companies in the world, they have literally an obsession, a focus with making more money, with calling on more people, with prospecting, and increasing prospecting levels. Now, Dominic and I were talking a little while ago about the strategy used by Franklin Covey to build their business from $0 to $50 million a year, and over the course of 2 decades to more than $1 billion in sales in corporate training. And it's what we call FaceTime. And I've been teaching this forever, and whether they got it from me or not, but basically the concept is that there is one number that more predicts the success of your sales and the future of your business than any other number, and it's the number of minutes that you spend face-to-face with prospects each day, the number of minutes that your clients spend. And with Franklin Covey, they have this number, and every single day they measure how many minutes did you, the sales professional, spend face-to-face with a prospective client. How many minutes each day? And they are forced to take accurate records, and the records are reported country by country, and nation by nation, and worldwide. And people are promoted, paid, advanced, based on the number of minutes that they spent. Now, I've encouraged this for years because according to Columbia University, the average sales professional in America or worldwide spends less than 90 minutes a day with customers. And all the rest of the time is spent warming up and warming down. Now, 90 minutes is the average, which means half of salespeople spend less than 90 minutes, and half spend more. So the question is, how about you? How about your salespeople? It's absolutely astonishing how many little useless activities salespeople can dream up to avoid the hard work of calling on customers. Because it's what they call, what Daniel Pink calls the ocean of rejection, is that when you start to call on customers to offer your products or services, you get an ocean of rejection, like a tsunami. The rejection is sometimes so overwhelming that salespeople do everything possible to avoid rejection, and the best way to avoid rejection is don't talk to those people that reject you. Find an excuse not to talk to people. So now it gets down so the average salesperson makes about 2 sales calls a day. 2 a day, spends less than 90 minutes, and all the rest of the time is traveling and making excuses. So spend more time with better prospects. Now, what is a good prospect? Well, what we find is that the most important work that you do as a business owner, a salesperson, a coach, a consultant, is thinking. And thinking means thinking before you act. Think in advance. What is it that you are going to do, and why are you going to do it? We say a stitch in time saves 9. Every minute that you spend in thinking and planning saves 10 minutes in work and execution. So what you do is the first thing you think about is, who is an ideal prospect for me? Who is the perfect prospect? I've worked with salespeople who spend an enormous amount of time answering this question, and then when they actually go out and make calls, first thing they do is they ask a couple of questions to make sure that this person is an ideal prospect, that if this person is satisfied with the discussion and the explanation, this person can and will buy and pay within a reasonable period of time. So we say that a good prospect is someone who wants what you're selling, who needs what you're selling, who can use what you're selling, and who can pay for what you're selling. They must meet all 4. If they meet the first 3 but they can't pay, this is not a good prospect. I have salespeople say, geez, I spoke to a good prospect today. Of course, he has no money, but if ever he did, he would be perfect for us. No, this is not a good prospect. This is a 0 prospect. If they don't have any money, they're not a good prospect. So a prospect can be defined as someone has, first of all, has a problem that your product or service can solve. This is kind of the fundamental principle. We call it the problem to be solved, PTBS. PTBS, problem to be solved. What is the problem that the customer has that they will pay you to take away? Let me repeat. What is the problem that the customer has that they will pay you to take away? And my favorite word in selling is clarity. So in customer acquisition, you must be clear about the problem that your product or service solves. Sometimes we call this the value offer, and sometimes we call it the unique added value. But the key to selling, according to Neil Rackham and his work, is that there must be a disparity between what you are offering in terms of the benefits and what the customer is experiencing. If the customer sees that there's a big difference between how much they pay and how much they get, the sale is made automatically. So in terms of solving the problem, the bigger and more expensive the problem, the more valuable your solution. The second is the need that your product or service can satisfy. Remember, customers have needs. Sometimes they're conscious needs, sometimes they're unconscious needs. And one of your jobs in the sales situation is to uncover those needs through questioning. By the way, here's the rule, is the more time you take discussing problems and needs with a customer before you ever mention your product or service, the easier the sale will be. The biggest mistake that salespeople make and the biggest objection that customers have is they say, hello, how are you, and launch right into a discussion of the product or service instead of taking the time to understand. Now, the third is the customer has a goal that your product or service can help them to achieve far faster and with greater efficiency and consistency and dependability than they could on their own. Remember, the customer has to be here, and you have to offer them to be here. And what they do is they buy this difference between the two. They buy the gap. In selling, sometimes we call this gap analysis. What is the gap between where the customer is and where the customer could be with your product or service? And the fourth way of qualifying a prospect is what is the pain that they have that your product or service can take away? What is the pain or concern? What keeps them awake at night, if you like? If you could, sometimes we say if you could wave a magic wand and just eliminate one major problem or aggravation in your life, what would it be? If you can show the customer how to take that away, then they will pay you almost anything. Look at the weight loss industry, by the way. That's a perfect model. They say, here's where you are today, very high weight. Here's where you can be in the future, thin, trim, sexually attractive, dynamic, full of energy. And what we'll do is we will show you how to get and jump this gap. We will show you how to get from where you are, overweight, to where you want to be, fit and trim. And we'll charge you for it. If a customer is convinced that it will work, the customer will pay almost anything. You know, it's interesting. Customers buy not products or services. In fact, customers don't even care what your product or service is. All they care is what is the outcome, benefit, or result that I will enjoy after I use your product. Customers, of course, at the University of Chicago buy what they anticipate enjoying as a result. They anticipate where will I be after this process, and that's what they buy. They buy the future. And your job is to paint, first of all, find out where they are, and then paint a beautiful future. Where are they today? Where can they be with your product or service? Now, the greatest of all values is transformation. People will pay a certain amount for a product or service, and they'll pay 10 or 20 or 100 times that to be transformed from where they are today to somewhere else completely, which is why people pay enormous amounts for health programs and enormous amounts for financial planning programs, from financial problems and lack to financial independence. They will pay for a transformation. And if you can show them how you can help them to transform their situation from where they are to where they really want to be, then they lose all price sensitivity. They don't even care what it costs. In fact, I was talking to a group of professionals the other day who've got their system down to the point where they make the sale and the customer agrees, and as they are signing the contract, the customer says, oh, by the way, how much is this going to cost? So I can know what to put on the check. They don't even care. If they can bring about a transformation, they don't even care what the price is. So people don't buy your product or service. They buy the transformation or change that they anticipate enjoying. So therefore, you always have to be asking, where's my next sale coming from, and who are the best people for me to talk to? In a very good qualifying process in lead acquisition, you simply ask a question that the person has to answer to demonstrate that they're a good prospect. Again, using weight loss, would you like to be thin, trim, and fit? If the person says no, then they're not a good candidate. If they say absolutely, it's my biggest goal in life, then they're a very good candidate for your prospect. So good prospecting starts off with asking questions to make sure that the person you're talking to actually is a good prospect. Dom and I were talking earlier about the whole process of lead generation. And lead gen, as they call it, is really the essence of all of modern marketing. Your ability to market. And people sometimes ask, what's the difference between marketing and sales? Well, a simple example that I use, I say, if you're talking to a group of people, you say, how many people here are hungry? And everybody raises their hand. That's marketing. They're saying, I have an interest in satisfying this need or taking away this problem. You say, now, I have a restaurant. Let me convince you, show you why it is in your best interest to come to my restaurant than going somewhere else. Interesting discovery in the research is that very often a good salesperson will say, this is a very good product and you should have it and it's cost effective and it'll make an enormous difference in your life. And then the prospect will go and buy it from a competitor. What on earth happened? Well, you didn't make the sale. You roused the need. You explained that the need could be satisfied. You did the marketing beautifully, but you did not make the conversion. You did not get them to buy from you. They went instead and bought from someone else. So lead generation and conversion rates are the keys to increasing your business by 21% or even more. Now with lead generation, there's a very simple ratio. It's quantity versus quality. Sometimes I'll say to salespeople is that if you want to double your sales, double the amount of customer contact that you make, double the number of people that you talk to, double the number of minutes that you spend face-to-face with prospects, and by the law of averages and by the law of probabilities, you'll double your sales. It's no great miracle. You'll find that the most successful salespeople in every industry engage in higher levels of call frequency. They simply call on more people. They talk to more people in the course of the day. If you're speaking to 5 people a day today, and you decide to speak to 10 from now on, you'll double your sales. And people come back to me all over the world. They say, I couldn't believe how easy it was to double my income. Instead of thinking of reasons to stay in the office and play on social media and talk to my friends and drink coffee and so on, I just went out there and called on people and spoke to them. Increase the number of minutes. If you double the number of minutes you're spending face-to-face with customers, you will double your sales. Which brings us back to a very interesting question, which I thought was a real shocker. They said, what is the business of business? And the business of business is buying customers. We call this customer acquisition, and customer acquisition activities, customer acquisition expenses. Your business is to buy customers at a lower cost than those customers yield to you on a net basis in terms of profitability. Now, Dom and I were also talking about the fact that you see these big companies and they announced they had hundreds of millions or billions of dollars in sales and they lost hundreds of millions of dollars. How on earth could they do that? They have so many billions of dollars in sales. How could they lose so much money? Answer, they paid more for their customers than they earned from their customers. Instead of doing the numbers very carefully, and there are companies that will go into, consulting companies go into a large company and show that probably at the end of the day, half of the products you sell you're losing money on. It's costing you too much to generate leads, too much to make the sales, you're having too many returns or customer dissatisfaction, it's costing you too much money to fulfill the order, and so on, and that you maybe making the sales, but at the end of the day, you're losing money on every one. You know, the old saying, we lose money on every sale, but we make it up on the volume. Only about half of your products and services are really profitable, and of those, there's about 3 that are the most profitable of all. And many companies are absolutely shocked. They are spending all of their money, billboards, advertising, radio, television, and so on, and they're shocked to find that they're losing money on every sale after they have deducted every single direct and indirect expense. So what you do is you find out what are my most profitable products and services, and what are the most profitable customers for me, the ones who most appreciate what I sell and will buy the soonest, and how can I find or contact more of them? And this all involves thinking. So we say that prospecting is the most important part of selling, and the first question you ask is, where's my next sale coming from? And again, all the grown-up companies think about sales all day long. And I was listening to an interview with Jack Welch, and he would say that they pay their people very well, but the top 10% of people get $1 million bonuses each year. And the top 10% of people are measured numerically, mathematically, on the basis of performance. And they're absolutely crystal clear. Did you hit your numbers? Did you get your numbers? How many calls did you make? How many sales did you make? How many dollars did you generate? How much profit did you generate from the sales of those products and services? And so on. And they hammer them. The big companies hammer these numbers every single day. So everyone in the company knows is that it's sales, sales, sales. You've got to make sales. You've got to bring home the bacon. And if you don't, you'll very quickly be replaced by someone who will. And once you have a performance-driven culture, in this case, a sales performance-driven culture, it's astonishing what happens in your business. So we say, the top 10% of people open 80% of the new accounts. And top 10% of people are called hunters. And these are people who go out into any market and they can find business. And if you want to be successful, you have to become a hunter. You have to be very, very aggressive to sell in a very competitive market. You have to be willing to bounce back from continuous rejection in order to finally get to those people who can and will buy from you. So we say that there are prospects everywhere, but they're not your prospects. So what are the characteristics of a good prospect? By the way, there are people who charge several $100s a day per person just to teach salespeople how to sort good prospects from poor prospects. Well, a good prospect has several qualities. Number one is they have a real need for what you're selling. We just sometimes joke, let us say you sell fire extinguishers and a person's hair is on fire. That's a good prospect. They need your product. And when do they need your product? They need it now. In other words, they have a real genuine need. And so you say, who are the prospects in my marketplace who need my product immediately? Because here's an interesting discovery. Immediacy lowers cost resistance. It lowers price sensitivity. The more I want it, the more I'm willing to pay for it immediately. No questions. The second is a good prospect has the power and the authority to make a buying decision. Some of the best research work on selling, called strategic selling, customer-centric selling, customer-oriented selling, starts off with this. It's called access to power. Access to power. I really like the word. In other words, you are talking to the person who can make the buying decision. And if you're not, you've got to get past that person to the person who can. There's no point in your making a wonderful presentation and developing an intimate, lifelong relationship with a person who does not have the authority. So the big focus on the most successful companies is get to the decision maker. Find out who the decision maker is. In our seminars, we teach people when you're talking to someone in a company, you say, who else in addition to you would be involved in making this decision? It's a very strategic question because the person can say, nobody else, I make the decision myself, which is great. Or they'll say, well, it has to go through the vice president of marketing or the owner or somebody else. That's the one that you have to get to. If you cannot get to the decision maker, then in the main you're wasting your time. So make sure that you know in advance that the person you're talking to is the power and the authority. If they like what you're talking about, they can say yes right now. A third quality of a good prospect is they like you. And this is really important. That's why we say that listening builds trust and likability. So the more questions you ask about the customer and their business and what they're doing and how it's working, the more time you take to understand the customer in advance, the examination or diagnosis phase, the more they like and trust you and the more open they are to you to buy. So therefore, take the time, ask the questions, listen carefully. Shakespeare said, make haste slowly. In other words, go very, very slowly at the beginning. And the research shows that the longer you take at the beginning before you ever talk about your product or service, the more likely it is that they will buy. Which brings us to a very interesting breakthrough. It's the difference between consultative selling, which I'll talk about in a couple of minutes, and what we call transactional selling. Transactional selling is to just sell a basic product or service, which more and more becomes commoditized. And commoditization takes place when the customer is convinced that what you sell and what somebody else sells and what everybody sells are all the same. If that's the case, the only question is how much is it? If you're looking at buying a bottle of wine or a bottle of beer or vegetables or anything else, it's a commodity. The only way that you differentiate a commodity from each other, because they're identical in nature, is by price. And the other part of selling is consultative selling. And this is where, and this is a wonderful way of putting it, you actually design the product with the customer, in front of the customer, in the conversation. In other words, you don't go in with any fixed ideas. You go in with a lot of knowledge and skill, but now what you do is like a doctor who has the ability to help a patient in many different areas. The first thing they do is they find out where and how. Is they don't lead with a prescription or with a recommendation. All they do is try to find out where can I be of the greatest help in taking away the pain. And the more time that you spend in this process, the easier the sale is. At a certain point, the customer will often say, well, what you got? I'll take it. And they will. So and so they like you and they like your product. A good prospect can be a multiple purchaser. This is another example. When lead generation, you're looking for people who, if they buy once and they're happy, they can buy again and again. I'm working with customers that I've been working with for 30 years now, and they're still good customers of mine, and I'm still good customers of them. And we have done literally millions of dollars of business together from the get-go. From the first day, we have worked closely together. And so I look back on that and I say, wow, the beginning of that sales relationship was tremendous. It led to my life today. Now, I was just reading something about sales success on the internet before I began talking to you. And what I always say is think of the second sale even before you make the first sale. And what this said is think of the fourth sale before you make the first sale, which is just the same mentality. Is when you deal with this prospect, think in terms of a relationship sale. Think in terms of the long term. Think in terms of a consultative sale where you're not selling a product and dropping it off on the doorstep and going home. You're actually going to work very closely with your prospect to install the solution, to solve the problem, to help them achieve the goal, and you're going to work with them hand in hand. There's two companies that I know of that have this philosophy. One is called McKinsey and Company, and the other is called Bain and Company, both of which you may know of. They're management consulting firms. They're multi-billion-dollar firms. Both of them will come in and they'll spend a lot of time to identify the problem, which is always in sales and profitability. Is the sales are not high enough or the profitability is not great enough. Those are your two major problems in any business. So they'll come in, they'll determine what it is, and sometimes it can be costs are out of alignment, sometimes it can be lack of training, sometimes it can be competitive offerings, and so on. But they'll find out what it is, and then they'll say, we can solve this problem, we can take this problem away, and take you from here to here. It's going to cost this amount of money. And it's yes or no. If the client says, yes, I will pay $50,000 or $500,000 or $5 million, then they will come in, they will do a complete assessment, they will develop the solution, what they call tooth to tail, from beginning to end, and then they'll come and arm in arm, they will link up with them and they will install the solution until they get the right results. And the results will almost always be 10 times or more benefit to the customer opposed to the cost. In other words, the payoff is extraordinary. And these people, McKinsey and Company, has a reputation going back for 1928. You hire McKinsey and Company, they will identify the problem, they will identify the solution, and they will install the solution hand in hand with you, and then leave you, and you can take it from there. And they've never not been paid. They've never not been paid since 1928. And Bain and Company is the same thing. I know because I've worked with great companies. Well, you have to see yourself as a consultant as well. You're a problem solver. You help your customers achieve a far greater level of satisfaction than they ever could without your help. And the amount that you charge is a very small amount of the benefit that they get. So finally, we say a good prospect is a center of influence. They can open doors for you. If they buy from you and they're happy, they can introduce you to lots of other people. I can tell you fabulous stories where making one good sale has led to 20 or 30 or 50 other customers because door after door is open. And you can use them as a referral. And they will speak well of you and write letters for you and even do testimonials on your website about how satisfied and happy they were with you. And finally, a good prospect is geographically easy to satisfy. You don't have to travel all over the country to satisfy a good prospect. So in lead acquisition, these are the things you're looking for. And what you're doing is you're sweeping the landscape, so like a hunter looking for game, is you're asking, where are these prospects? And then what you do is you narrow in, like a sniper, one shot, one kill. You focus in on exactly those prospects who can be the very best for you. All of your advertising, by the way, all of your promotion, everything is aimed at identifying and contacting and finally meeting with people who can and will buy from you and pay within a short period of time. Now, what is a poor prospect in lead gen? A poor prospect is someone who sees little benefit in what you're offering. As they say, yeah, they don't care. A second is that they have a difficult and negative personality. One of the recommend these eventually become what we call customers from hell. They just become pains. They complain to you. They insult your staff. They don't pay their bills. They don't buy very much anyway. If you're dealing with a person and they have what we're offering is the right thing for you, but thank you very much for your time, and I'll see you later, and you have a good life. Get up and leave. She's cut off the sales transaction. You do not need to expose yourself to difficult people. There's nothing good is ever going to come of it anyway. A third quality of a poor prospect is they argue or complain continually about your price or your quality, even if they compare to your competitors. Oh, your competitors are better here, and your competitors are better there, and you charge too much here, and you charge too much there. You say, Mr. Prospect, the product is what it is, the price is what it is. If this is not what you're looking for, then we understand that, and you have a good day. You just walk away. Don't waste time with these people. I've had many people say this transformed their sales career, as they thought they had to sit there and take what kicking from a difficult prospect and insults about their product or service. And I said, no, you don't. Get up and walk out. You're never going to see or talk to these people again anyway. So be courteous and say, this is not the right thing for you, but thank you very much for your time. I'll let you get back to work, and I'll get back to mine. And walk. Just leave. Well, a poor prospect would be is one who's happy with their existing supplier. They're always talking about how good their existing supplier is. And I had a salesman come up to me and say, well, what if you're talking to this prospect and they're a great potential buyer, but they're really happy with their existing supplier? What can you do? And I said, find your own damn prospect. Find your own customer. Is that salesperson and that company is doing all the right things because their customer is really happy with them. They're so happy that they're not interested in anybody else's offerings. That's the kind of relationship that you want to develop yourself. A poor prospect is also a small purchaser of what you sell. Even if you do overcome all of their problems and concerns, they're only going to buy a little bit, and they're only going to buy once, and then they're going to complain and probably won't pay you. A poor prospect is not a good source of referrals. They're maybe unknown or they're small, but even if they are happy, they can't send you new referrals. And finally, a poor prospect is difficult to visit or to service geographically. Sometimes they're busy all the time, and they can't meet with you, and they cancel meetings, and they put you off another week or a month, and they're out of town, or they are out of town, and you have to go travel distances to service them. Well, remember, the only thing that you have to sell as a sales professional or business owner is your time. And there are some prospects who give you what we call very high ROTI, R-O-T-I, return on time invested. I say the very best prospective customer for you is in the office next door. You can walk out of your office and walk into their office without even going out in the sunshine. That's the very best prospect, is someone who's close to you geographically. I know many salespeople who will take a map, they'll put a pin in their office, and they'll draw a 5 or 10 or 15-mile circle around their office, and they'll only work in that market area. They'll only work where they're only a few minutes from their office. They won't travel 50 or 100 miles to see a prospect because it's not a good ROTI, return on time invested. So what we do is we say there's 4 keys to lead generation. First of all, specialization. In what areas do you specialize? And in what sort of customers do you specialize? For my business, for Dominic's business, for our business, is we specialize in small and medium-sized business owners because we know that we can bring them the very best results, very fastest, and at the lowest possible price. Of course, I do work with some of the biggest companies in the world. I've calculated I've spoken to more than 1,000 equivalent of Fortune 500 companies worldwide. I was doing some work earlier this year with Sberbank in Russia. Sberbank in Russia has 220,000 employees and 21,000 branches. And I was working with their president, chairman of the board, the chief executives, the top management team for almost 3 days. And so I work with big companies, some of the biggest companies in the world, but I find that the companies that can take and use these ideas the fastest are small, medium-sized businesses. They can literally transform their businesses by 5 and 10 times in a year and increase their profitability dramatically by just simply small tweaks and things that they're doing that other companies are doing they don't even know about. So specialize in your particular type of customer, and then differentiate. And differentiate is to ask the question, where and how are you superior to your competitors? Michael Porter of Harvard, who is the great expert on competitive advantage differentiation, says that your great goal in life is what is called unique added value. And unique added value is the point of the spear in all of your customer acquisition activities. Unique added value is once you have determined your customers, the ones that you sell to, the ones who you can help the very most at the very lowest price and get the highest returns, then the next question you ask is, what is the unique added value that I can bring them that no other competitor can bring them? What is it that I can do that nobody else can? And without unique added value, you can never break into your market because your customers will always compare you with your competitors. But always customers buy from a company because they perceive that the company offers one specific value that nobody else offers. So what is it that you offer? And sometimes, if your product or service is standardized in the minds of your customers, sometimes it can be you. It can be the quality of your personality, warmth, friendliness. It can be speed of responsiveness. It can be absolutely amazing. I remember some years ago, we found that our house had become infested by a swarm of bees. Now, at that time, I had an allergy to bee stings. What that meant is that I'd had 2 bee stings, one more would kill me, unless I got almost instant treatment. And so my wife saw that the bees had not only hit the house, but they had worked their way into the wall. I mean, it's quite an amazing darn thing. And so she called, and this was a Sunday, and she called, and these companies said available 24 hours for insect removal and so on. She called Company 1, answering machine, we'll be back on Monday, we're out of the office. Company 2, Company 3, the answering machine answered, and there was a woman trying to answer over 3 screaming kids in the background. And kept saying, what do you want, what? My husband's not here. Finally, she called this company. It was answered professionally, and she said, I need an insect removal immediately, bees, and my husband got a bee sting. These people said, bees? Bee sting allergy? We will be there in 45 minutes. They showed up like a SWAT team raiding a company. They were out. They had their outfits on, their bee things. They hit that house. They said, we want you out of the house, away from this house. We'll have these bees. And they moved in. We almost had tears in our eyes. It's $200, $300, $400. And what's they charge? $1,500. And you know what? We were so grateful to them, we wanted to give them a tip. We wanted to pay them 5 times. Do you know why? It's because they moved so fast. And for the rest of our lives, if ever we needed termite removal of any kind, if ever we needed, what would happen? We would call them. Who would we refer them to? We'd refer them to them, and so on.
Brian, can I ask a question?
Sure.
I just got a question in from Luis Vicente Garcia. And you know Luis. He's in Caracas, Venezuela, and he's also in Houston. He's sitting with a large group of people, and the question has come up on this differentiation point that you've just raised. What about people that are in industries that are classically defined as price? You know, mortgage brokers, I think he specifically asked about, and people that sell policies, insurance policies or coverage policies. Where's their differentiation opportunity?
Okay, here's the research, and it's exhaustive. 50, 60 years at Harvard, overwhelming stuff, and it's great stuff. I want you to imagine that a commoditized service like mortgage brokers is like a jelly donut. Now think of a jelly donut. A jelly donut has the jelly in the middle, and then it has the donut. Well, what they found at Harvard in the PIM studies, profit improvement, profit implications of marketing strategies, is that in the customer's mind, the product is 2 things. It is the product itself and the way that the product is served and delivered. And so the product itself is the jelly. It's the basic jelly, but the way that it's served is the donut. And so therefore, if the product has become commoditized, then the service becomes all important to the customer. The warmth, the friendliness, the speed, the charmingness, the accuracy. I'll give you a great example. Personnel services, where you call a company to have them find you a particular person that you need for your company. A woman client of mine started her own company after working in the industry for some years, and then went out calling on businesses and found it was very, very difficult to get new business because every company she called on had already a supplier, a personnel agency that they called when they needed someone. So she called and called. Finally, she called on an old friend of hers that she'd worked with the previous company, and this friend gave her an assignment to find a particular executive that costs $60,000 a year, and they make about 30 or 40%, usually a third of the first year's salary. So she went to work on this client to find this person the right person. She advertised, she interviewed, she made phone calls on previous people she knew, and every day or two she'd call back the client and give her a progress report. Every week she'd give her a written progress report of her activities. And she did this for 2 or 3 weeks and finally found the right person for this company, and they hired the person and she made the commission. When they were finalizing the transaction, the woman, the client, said, you know, I've never gotten so much service from a personal agency in my life. Usually they'll call me once a week to tell me how they're doing. You call me every day or two. You give me email updates. You give me written updates. I've never had such incredibly good service. And of course, I was always curious to know, because this is an important opening in our company. And she said, I'm going to recommend you to others. And she did. And she told me, she said, that transformed her life forever. She said the reason she gave her such good service because that was the only customer she had. So she just drowned her in service. But after that, they set up a service structure where they constantly got back to their customers. They constantly reported to them. And they reported to them until the customer said, you're giving me too much information about my situation, and not one ever said that. They were delighted, and their business grew, referral after referral after referral. You cannot believe the customer service you get selling a standard commoditized product. So I'm making the point is that if you're in that kind of a business, then you have to sit down and say, what can we do to make our customers happy, and then happier still? And the answer is speed of response, customer contact, warmth, friendliness, gratitude, thank you cards, thank you emails, little gifts. Just think of how you can stand out from all your competitors by being the nicest and most positive and easiest people to deal with. Many years ago, I started working with IBM. And again, it was my first big corporate client. And working with IBM as a junior speaker, that was tremendous. What referrals, testimonials, validity with importance. Where they asked to fly across the country to give a talk, to develop a new talk, to stay overnight, to anything they asked me to do, I would do, because they were my only big client. And then after they had used me 10 times, 20 times, 25 times, I finally summoned my courage, and I asked them, I said, you know, I really appreciate your using me, because it's such an honor, and I really worked hard to make sure the seminars were good. But why is it that you choose me? I mean, I don't want to hurt our relationship, but I'd really be curious to know. They said, Brian, because you're so easy to work with. Is you offer very good quality talks, we get high ratings, and you're so easy to work with. So we say, who are we going to get for this? Oh, just call Brian Tracy, because he'll do a wonderful job for us. He'll do great preparation. He'll always be on time. He'll never complain. He won't drink out of the refrigerator in the room and try to bill the liquor to our account and so on. Just easy to work with. And that was a turning point in my career. Today I have a little philosophy, by the way, and it is, before you ask, the answer is yes. And Don knows this. Steve knows this. Everybody knows this. All my clients know is that before you ask, the answer is yes. Do you want me to come early? Do you want me to meet with clients, have dinner, take photographs, sign books? Do you want me to do process? The answer is yes. So that's how you differentiate yourself when you're selling a commoditized service, is make it so that you're the easiest person to deal with. And when they think about hiring someone to do this, I think about you. And since everything else is the same, the one area where you can be unique, different, superior from anybody else is you, baby. Your personality and the quality of your relationship. So, moving on, segmentation means that you segment your customers. You look at your marketplace and say, where are those customers that are doing well? One of the things we used to say to, if you're selling to businesses, is the way that you qualify them at the beginning is you say, how's business? It's a really great how's business. If they say business is great, this is a good prospect. Because people whose businesses are doing well want them to do better and are willing to pay. If you say we're really struggling, but we see the light at the end of the tunnel, that's also a good prospect. Because it means they're open to any solution you can offer them that will help them to improve their business. If they say business sucks and it's getting worse, it's not a good prospect. They don't have the money, they're drowning in problems, they're overwhelmed, they don't have the authority, and so on, so walk away. If you're selling to individuals, by the way, the question is very simple. How's life? A person will tell you, because the answer that will be a generic answer will embrace their whole life. You say, how's life? You say, well, life is really great. You say, well, in that case, great, we're talking to the right person. So moving right along, we say, always ask, why should they buy it from your company rather than from someone else? And be clear about the answer, because the customer is always curious, why should I buy from you rather than from someone else? And you can even say, you know, people often ask, why should they choose us rather than someone else? Well, let me give you the 3 reasons that our clients give us for choosing us and why they buy from us and continue to buy from us. And this is a great, great response. Let me tell you why people buy from us and continue to buy from us. Why people use our services and continue to use our services or our products. And you say there's 3 major reasons. And you give the 3 reasons. And if you don't have the reasons, you better figure them out. And then you say, do any of these reasons apply to you? Is our products work excellently and they never have any problems in terms of quality or defects? Second of all, our customer service is really fast and really friendly. And third of all, our prices are really competitive in this market. Do any of these 3, are any of these 3 of concern to you? And the prospect will say, well, yeah, I like all 3. I mean, I like really good quality products and great service and great prices. They're 90% sold right there. Now you just have to prove what you just said. And then the next question, first of all, why should they buy from your company? And second of all, why should they buy from you personally? And this is really where the rubber meets the road. You know, people don't buy products, they buy people. They don't buy from companies, they buy from individuals like yourself. And so the question is, why should I buy from you? And here's what the research says. The number 1 reason why people buy from you is because they think you care about them more than other people do. And how is it that they think that you care about them? Where does this come from? It's because you ask them so many questions about themselves and their work and their business and their company, and you don't talk about your product all the time. And they're quite amazed at that. And then eventually you almost have to ask them, well, tell me a little bit about your product. Well, since you asked, let me tell you a couple of things that I think we can do for you. And then you just kind of roll gently into the presentation. One of the things we learned in over 55,000 video sales calls that Rackham and other people did was that there seems to be a gear shift point in a sales conversation where you're asking questions, listening, taking notes, never talking about your product at all, where the customer will say, well, tell me a little bit about what you've got. The customer will now invite you. The customer will say, okay, our relationship is established. I like you. I trust you. I feel comfortable with you. Now please tell me what you've got. And they will just almost say that. And you'll say, well, thank you very much. I'd love to tell you what we have and what we can do for you. But, you know, based on what you said, this is where I think we could start and so on. But you wait, you know. If you remember that movie Braveheart, where they're being attacked by the English armored cavalry, the knights, and he keeps saying, wait, wait, hold, 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 until the last minute. Well, same thing with you when you're selling is hold, wait, bide your time, wait until the customer says, please tell me what you've got. If you can do that, the chances of making a sale skyrocket. In fact, the longer the time that goes by in the conversation before the customer invites you to talk, the more likely it is you'll make the sale. And this is based on exhaustive research.
Brian?
Yes.
Brian, sorry, Dominic here. I have a question that's just come in from Jason Assen. As you know, Jason runs Canada, and he also does sales training. He's one of the SSI trainers as well. And the question that I have from him here is sometimes we get resistance when we're training people on using scripts for selling. They resist because they feel scripts will come off as canned. And so what's your thought about scripting for a sales professional in the sales process?
Have you ever been to a stage play? Live theater? Say yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Every word that every actor uses is scripted. But
and every move,
they have
right?
rehearsed them over and over again. It comes across natural and fluid. My son David is now working for a top real estate agency in Las Vegas, nationally known, and they have scripts for every single phone call. And what they do is they train them and train them and train them so that it answers every question, every objection. But they train them so that they're doing it naturally and fluidly. Here's the discovery: you increase your sales by about 500% with a script. as opposed to just spontaneous, say whatever falls out of your mouth and forget half of what you're going to say at the end. A really good script will increase your sales 500%. A really good sales process, by the way, will increase your sales 500% over that of your competitors, which is why every single big company, which was once a small company, whether it's Hewlett-Packard or Apple Computer, started with 2 people in a garage each and became some of the biggest companies in the world. Every one of them found at a certain point, everybody sings off the same page of the hymn book. If you get a presentation in Shanghai from a Hewlett-Packard sales professional, it's the identical presentation that you'll get in San Diego. And, however, each person adds their own spin. It's like a great song. You know, have you ever heard a song and the song was great, then somebody else sang it and it wasn't as good, but somebody else sang it, it was even better than the original? It's the same thing, but people resist sales scripts because they're lazy. They're lazy or they're ignorant. They don't realize that a good sales script can dramatically increase the quality of their sales, or they're just too lazy to memorize it.
Wonderful.
I worked with a company many years ago, and I worked with one of the biggest companies in the world, multi-billion dollars, vacuum cleaners, Kirby vacuum cleaners. And the people that go to work for Kirby, they hire right off the street, off the curb. I mean, outside the bars. Outside the office. I mean, these guys are ragtag, and they sit them down, and these guys got nicotine burns on their hands and brown teeth and long hair and double knit clothes and everything else. And they sit them down and they teach them the Kirby script. And these people go out cold calling in the neighborhoods and they sell $1 billion worth of vacuum cleaners a year. And I've worked with them and I've watched the presentation, and I'll tell you what, you almost cry. It is so good. It is so smooth. They're going against people who slam the door in their face, but they still knock again, and they have, what do you do after the first slam? What do you say after the second slam? They come to the door and they swear at them and they tell them they're not interested and go and, you know, reproduce by yourself. And they say, they just keep on smiling and they walk away with the sale. And the sales are $2,000 and $3,000 a piece in poor neighborhoods. And people are cheering them and wanting them to meet their daughters and come back for dinner because their sales, and word for word, and every salesperson uses the same script. I worked with them in Russia. I worked with them in Slovenia. I worked with them throughout the U.S. and in Germany. It's the most amazing thing they built, and all the other big door-to-door appliance salespeople companies do the same thing, and they sell billions. And they take complete idiots, and they make them memorize the script and recite it in front of a group. Once they've memorized the script, they go out and they'll take them to a door and they'll knock on the door and stand back and watch them give the script. And then they'll grade them and they'll give them feedback. And within a couple of sales calls, these people are selling more than you could imagine. So therefore, it's a long answer, but your friend is right.
Yes, it always amazes me that people are resistant to scripts when it is a proven path to success. Write the script down, use the script, get the results. So yeah. Thank you.
Grown-up companies and high-income people use a script. But what they do is they then add their own personality, flavor, and charm to the script, but they always know where they are. So moving along is a great question is, of all the benefits that you offer, what is the most important benefit? And the most important benefit if you're selling services is a cost benefit. If you're selling services like mortgage services that are the same, then it is a no-hassle benefit. Customers place such an incredible value on you making it easy for them to do it. Just make it easy for them to engage in the transaction. Keep them informed, take care of them, call back quickly when they have a problem or a concern, always be friendly, and so on. So what are the benefits, and then who is your competition? And this is really important. The work that was done at Harvard said all sales is differentiation, and it's differentiation from your competitors. So you have to ask, who's your most successful competitor, and why do people buy from your competitor? And you even have to ask, why don't they buy from me? If I've spoken to them and they have heard me talk and then they decide not to buy from me, you have to find out why. And sometimes it's one small thing. A point that I encourage people to do, especially small, medium-sized businesses, is do your own market research. Recent studies show that more than 80%, close to 90% of businesses do not know why their recent customers bought from them rather than from a competitor. They don't know the answer. If you ask them, you say, if I put a gun to your head, how confident are you in the answer? They all say, no, I don't know. And if you don't know, how can you improve your sales presentation? So here's a very simple markets research test that you can make. Call your last 10 customers, the people who bought from you, and express your appreciation. Thank you so much for buying from us. Is there anything I can do for you? Is everything okay? And they'll say yes, yes, and so on. Or they may have a problem that you can solve. And then you say, you know, I just wanted to tell you, we know that you could have bought. Like the airlines say, we know you could have flown with other airlines, but thank you for flying with us. I know you could have bought from someone else. May I ask, what was the one reason? Always ask for the one. What was the one reason that caused you to choose us rather than our competitors? And there's always one. And they'll give it to you. And if you ask 10 customers, 8 out of 10 will be the same answer. And most cases, you'll be surprised. You'll be shocked. You didn't even know that was the answer. That is the key to your selling to everybody you talk to. Now, here's the second thing you do. Call back the last 10 people who you spoke to and had a good relationship with them. They decided not to use your services. And say, you know, I really thank you. Or even if they bought from your competition, say, really thank you for taking your time to consider our offering and everything else. The people that you've chosen to go with or the decision that you've made, I'm sure is the best for you. But let me ask you one question. What was the one reason why you decided not to use our services at this time? And find out, we call this the key benefit and the key objection. The key benefit is the reason they bought. The key objection is the reason they didn't. And when you ask 10 customers, you'll find that 8 out of 10 will give you the same key objection. And it's something that you could have answered. If you had known that, instead of talking so much, if you had known that that was their biggest concern, they would have bought from you. I remember when I started off selling my services, I found that people were afraid that it wouldn't work. This is the number one reason that people don't buy. If they're convinced that it will work, they'll buy immediately. And they want it now. They want it immediately. Don't leave my office. If they're not convinced, then they'll say, well, let me think about it. Let me think it over. Let me check around. So what I would do is I would just guarantee it. I would say, look, if you're not happy, there's no charge. And you decide. I will deliver the services as we promised. If you're not happy, there's no charge. And I had to do this to get into the Fortune 500 companies at the beginning of my career because they assumed that I was a junior speaker, in this case from Canada. And if you're a junior speaker from Edmonton, you can't be any good. I mean, why would you be sitting up there with all the Ukes, the Ukrainians? So I'd say, if you're not happy, and these clients in the U.S., if you're not happy, there's no charge. And I still do that. And I've had to give the money back twice in my career. Both times, because I was so busy, I was flying overnight and speaking the next day, and damn near falling asleep in front of the audience. And that happened twice. I fell asleep. I forgot the client's name. Very bad. And the other time, I forgot the name of the company that I was talking to because I was so tired. But that's only twice in my career. And so therefore, if you're confident in what you offer it, sweeping unconditional guarantee. And that answers the question, does it work? Will it work? How can I be sure? So, and it's that's just my strategy. And then find out who your competitors are. Find out why your customers buy from your competitors. What value do they see that your competitors have that they perceive that you don't have? And how could you offset that? They say that the most important part of selling is to maximize your best attributes and to minimize the best attributes of your competitors and expose their vulnerabilities. Now, here's another really important point. It's never badmouth your competitors. It's really, really important that when you're talking to someone and they say, well, we're thinking of using your services, but we're thinking of using your competitor, always, I do call it a preemptive strike. So always say, oh, my competitor, oh, they're a good company. They're a very good company. They've got excellent people. They've been in business a long time. They do really good work. In other words, just overdo it. And then you say, the only difference between them and I is we have a different philosophy. We approach it a little bit differently. And let me explain to you our philosophy because we think it's more beneficial to our clients than their approach. Just a difference of approach. But never badmouth your competitors. Always talk about how good they are. And then they will be forced to be skeptical of your competitors. But if ever you say anything critical about your competitors, you immediately diminish the quality of your product. You diminish yourself. Someone once said, you say more about yourself when you criticize others than you say about the people you're criticizing. So always, so always
Take the high road. Always take the high road.
Always take the high road and be gracious and say, we feel that our approach helps our clients to get better results faster at a lower price. So this is our approach. It's a little bit different from the approach. For example, we do this complete by strengths and weaknesses, threats and opportunities before we begin. We identify where we can bring about the most immediate and measurable financial result, and we start there rather than starting in a general sense. Whatever your reasons are. So always look at how you can offset the strengths of your competitors, how you can offset your weaknesses. Always ask why. And another question, and Peter Drucker said this, he said, who's the biggest customer block in any market? And the answer was the non-customer. The non-customer is the person who can use and pay for and value your product or service, but buys neither from you nor from your competitors. So the question is, who are your non-customers and why are they non-customers? Why don't they buy from anybody? What is the perception that they have that you can perhaps neutralize that causes them not to buy from anybody? And this is the whole purpose. As Drucker said, the purpose of marketing is to make selling unnecessary. Now, I don't believe that selling is ever unnecessary until you look at the highest value company in the history of the world, which is Apple. And everything they do is marketing. By the time they finish their marketing, people are lined up 300 deep around the block and sleeping on the concrete to buy their products first thing in the morning. Their marketing is extraordinary. Their marketing is extraordinary. By the way, here's a very interesting approach that Steve Jobs uses, and there's all kinds of books and articles written on it called The Presentations Secrets of Steve Jobs, to create markets of 50 million for a brand new product within the first 90 days. And this is what happened with the iPod, the iPhone, and the iPad, and they're still selling 50 million a quarter. I mean, beyond imagination, and at very high, and no price resistance. No price resistance. People are literally throwing $500 and $600 bills over the heads of other people lined up to get these phones and these gadgets. In Europe, by the way, they price the iPhone in euros. So if it's $500 or $600 in North America, it's 500 or 600 euros, which is 30% more, and people buy them with both hands. So his secret is very interesting. He does what he calls a straw man. He picks an enemy, and he said that we, Apple, are going to help you to fight the enemy. And then he shows the enemy. Now let us say that we're offering business coaching services. Well, what is the enemy? The enemy is low and inconsistent sales, low and inconsistent profit margins, and continuous concern about the viability and success of the business on the part of the business owner. That's the enemy. That's what's causing the stress, the frustration, the problem, the need, the goal, and everything else. And we are here to defeat that enemy. We're here to show you how you can increase your sales consistently, how you can increase your profitability consistently, lower costs, and how you can remove the obstacles and the problems that are causing you frustration and unhappiness. So therefore, you make it clear, here is the problem, and we are the solution. Here is the need, we are the satisfaction. Here's the goal that you want to achieve, and here's how we achieve that goal for you. And if you'll do that, create this contrast between where you are now and where you want to be in the future, then people say, well, how much will it cost me to get there? How much will it cost me to get there? And people will pay almost anything. I remember talking about this need for satisfaction, need for transformation with an executive, and he said, I'm a golfer. I love playing golf. He said, if a golf pro could show me how to cut 2 swings off my golf game consistently, I'd pay him $50,000. I'd write a check for $50,000 just to reduce my golf game by 2 strokes, to be 2 strokes better. And a perfect example of how people will pay almost anything for a transformation. They'll pay almost anything to be moved from here to a whole new different level. This is why people pay Bain & Company and McKinsey & Company millions and billions of dollars each year, because the transformation that takes place is predictable and consistent, and you can take it to the bank. Basically, it costs them nothing. One of the things I point out that if the benefits that your product offers are substantial enough, then they're free. The product or service itself is free. We've talked about this before. is that if you get more back than you pay in terms of dollars to the bottom line, well, then you can buy those services all day long. Remember we talked about customer acquisition, and the most important thing to understand is that everybody's in the business of buying customers at a price lower than the profit that they yield. So one of the questions you have to ask is, what is my average sale from a new customer, and how much profit do I earn? And you talked about lifetime value of a customer. Very often a customer can quickly become a multiple customer, in which case you can break even or lose money on the first sale, and then what you do is you say, how much do I earn in the first 6 to 12 months from a new customer? And then make sure that the amount that you're paying in terms of advertising, promotion, commissions, discounts, bonuses, everything is less than the profit that you generate. If you can structure your business so that the profit is higher than the cost of acquisition, then you can advertise, promote, expand, and become a multinational company. The critical thing is the cost of acquisition must be below the profit that the customer will yield within a reasonable period of time. And so, but you must know the number. Most companies that I deal with, I say, what does it cost you to acquire a new customer? They have no idea. Sit down. If you sit down and actually work it up, and what you do is you have to work out the cost of each individual. Let us say you, the company owner. One of the reasons why small, medium-sized businesses have problems is that they do not calculate their own efforts, the efforts of themselves and maybe their top people. How many minutes, how many hours do you spend in the generation of a new customer? And what is your hourly rate, which is calculated by taking your annual income and dividing it by 2,000. So if you earn 100,000 a year, you divide it by 2,000, then your cost is $50 an hour. And that is a real attributable cost that must be added to the cost of customer acquisition. If it takes you 45 minutes, then that's $37.50. And that's why many people say, we acquire these customers, but we're still losing money. Well, you're not adding all the costs. Add the cost of your shipping, add the cost of your secretary, your receptionist, the person, the IT person. In our business, we break it down to pennies that are attributable to every single sale. And we charge those against the division or the department, and we charge it against the sale to calculate profitability. And that's what all grown-up companies do, is they put a number on everything. There's a company in the Midwest that got into this some years ago, and this gentleman inherited a shotgun company from his husband, from his mother and father. And they'd built this company, Midwestern company. They built shotguns, pretty much custom. And they built the company over the course of their lifetime, about $5 million. And when he came in, he had a business degree. And one of the things they teach in a business degree is that you can measure everything. And so he began to establish measures. How long does it take? What kind of cost of customer acquisition? People usually phone in on the phone at that time, then eventually mail in, and then eventually online. And how many minutes does the receptionist spend? How long does it take to make the rifle? How long does it take to ship it? Much does it cost? And so on and so forth, and so on. And they began to measure things. Over the course of the next 10 years, they developed 750 measures. They could measure how many rings it took for them to respond to a customer, how long they spent on the phone with each customer, the size of each order, profitability of each order, the cost of manufacture, cost of shipping, development, the frequency of purchase of satisfied customers, the number of returns, and so on. Every single person had their own numbers. And one of the things that they found was that if you want to grow your business quickly, put a number on everything, like how many rings, how many minutes. Jeff Bezos won the award last year for the greatest businessman in the country, Fortune and Forbes, front cover articles, Wall Street Journal, everything. And Jeff Bezos has an obsession with counting numbers. They began to count the number of seconds that it takes to pick a book and move it onto the production line before it goes to the next stage where it's packaged and shipped and everything else. At the time that I started dealing with Amazon, they had it down to the point where they could deliver a book within 7 to 10 days. Then it was 8 to 10. Then it was 5 to 7. And then it was 4 to 6. And then it was 3 to 5. Today, half of the books that you order from Amazon, if you order them today, they'll be delivered to your home tomorrow. And now they're opening up warehouses in cities, places like Los Angeles, San Francisco, San Diego. Their goal is to get the book to you the day that you order it. And they now have 30 million products that they offer. Any product that you want to buy in the history of the world, with few exceptions, you can go onto Amazon. It'll be delivered in a couple of days, sometimes overnight. And then Jeff Bezos starts talking about drones. Remember that big thing? He said, we're looking into drones. So if a person orders it this morning, we can actually attach it to a drone and drop it at their home later this morning. Unbelievable. Now, they know that you can't do that because the whole skies would be full of Amazon drones. But he's achieved this goal. Every penny that they make, they put back into improving customer service. And so now there's a need for speed. Human beings value speed above almost everything else. So today, more and more people don't go to stores anymore. They do what is called, what do they call that, where they go to stores and they look at what's available and then they buy it somewhere else.
Right. Yeah, they go to the store, they try it on, they check out the size, the color. If it's a watch, they want to feel it, but then they leave the product and they go back and buy it online. I'm sure that my text messaging will light up in a moment here with all the answers from coaches.
Yeah. So what Neil Rackham has found in his recent research, and I've done some work with him for about 2 or 3 days, is that products are very quickly becoming divided. The middle used to be the middle. The middle is now hollowing out. And you have two products. You have transactional products, which are where the customer knows exactly what they want, and they just go online and buy it. And then you have consultative products, where the product has to be developed in consultation with the customer. It's specialized, it's customized, it's different. And the middle is hollowing out completely. Within 5 years, salespeople who sell transactional products today are called today walking brochures. And they don't need a brochure, they can just buy it online, because all the information, data, details are all online. And that's what's happening with the retail industry. Shopping centers, big stores, they're in serious, serious trouble. Walmart has bounced back, and they're offering special price offerings online, but they'll offer their online prices in store to get people to come into the store and buy now rather than going away. And then the other side will be consultative, personalized selling, face-to-face, where you develop a long-term relationship with the client. And most of the people listening to this, most B2B sales, by the way, are either transactional, pure commodities, or they're consultative, where you develop the product hand in hand, arm in arm, in conjunction with the client. And it's going to require a whole new focus. But even commoditized products like mortgage services can be made consultative products, highly personalized, where the person deals only with you. And how do we know that? It's because the most successful mortgage brokers have an entire stable of people who only do business with them and recommend them to their friends. And that's your job as well. So anyway, the last question we ask in terms of lead generation and conversion is, what must the customer be convinced of to buy your product? And it's always one thing. What must they be convinced of? What is the one thing that causes the nickel to drop? If I can be sure of getting that, I'll take it. And I can tell you all kinds of things. Once you find the key benefit that they want, the unique added value that you offer, the pain, goal, need, benefit that the prospect has, and then you find out what is the one thing. Now, each prospect may be different. I have a doctor who is an internist. Now, he's an amazing doctor. He's been able to pick up things with me that have been extraordinarily helpful. But he can deal with the whole body. So you go to him, and I go to him for a medical checkup once a year. You go to him, and he'll go from stem to stern. He puts aside about 90 minutes. Takes blood tests, blood pressure, heart rate, stool, urine, all these things, puts them all together, checks them all out, and comes up with a photograph. And he'll say, here's your situation. You have more of this, less of that. You need more of this, less of that. You have this problem, you don't have that problem, and so on. But after he's done his examination, he knows exactly what I need to do. Some years he'll say, you're in great shape, no problem. You might want to take a little bit more iron in your diet, or cut down on carbohydrates or something like that. Very simple stuff. Or other times he'll say, you've got cancer, and I'm going to put together a team to take care of this cancer, it's going to take about 6 to 9 months, and it's going to require chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery, and we need to get on with it right away. That was what happened to me in 2010.
Of course, right, yes.
Like an orchestra conductor, he put together the oncologist, he put together the radiation specialist, put together the surgeon, put them all together, did the x-rays, and he said it'll take about 6 months to work this process through. At the end of 6 months, I was speaking again. It was throat cancer, and I lost my ability to speak during the process of speaking. He said, in 6 months, you'll be speaking again, and after that, he said, we'll follow up very closely, but you should never have a recurrence. And I haven't. But, in other words, what I'm saying is that a really good doctor is like an internist. He does a really good examination, and then he can identify exactly where he can be of the most help and where you need the most help immediately, where you can get the greatest results or benefits. And a good coach, a good business-to-business salesperson is like a really good internist, is they don't go in with preconceived notions about what the patient needs or wants and so on. They go in with a very, very large body of knowledge and skill and experience, and then they work very closely and they realize that each customer is special and unique and different. And by the way, you know, I remember when I was single and courting women, I watched this guy who was a superb hustler. He was overweight, not particularly attractive, and he could pick up girls everywhere. And he had a really, really interesting technique. And one of his techniques was very early in the conversation, he'd say, you know something, I get the feeling that you are a very sincere person. No matter what you say on the outside, you're a very sincere and sensitive person on the inside. And women would just melt. They would just melt. They say, oh my God. Because, you know, in psychology, they say the deepest craving of human nature is to be understood and appreciated by someone else. And they would just melt, and he'd be on his way home to bed with them after another hour. Oh, please take me home, your place or my place. And I'd be sitting there trying to impress the other women and going home alone most of the time. I hope I'm not.
I have to laugh, Brian, because out of the whole workshop that we've just had today, there's a whole bunch of people listening. We've got about 300 or 400 people on this meeting today. There's a whole bunch of people now who've grabbed their red marker and have written, and it's probably the guys. Guess what Brian Tracy told me today.
Here's the point. The name of the book, which was the Myers-Briggs test, was called Please Understand Me. Please understand me. And it is the deepest craving in human nature is to be understood. And so therefore, when you're dealing with clients, is, as Covey said, seek first to understand and then to be understood. The biggest mistake that we make in business is we want them to understand us first. No, that's not the order. Seek first to understand. And how do you understand? You ask questions, and you listen closely to the answers, and you take notes, and you nod, and you smile, and you don't interrupt, and shut up about yourself and your business. The biggest irritation, the number one obstacle to making sales, is that salespeople talk too much about their product or service too early in the conversation. The longer you can put it off. Here's a very simple example. As a matter of fact, I was just doing a talk for Amacom today on sales that was being projected nationwide, an online webinar. And when a customer asks you a question, remember the person who asks questions has control. The person who asks questions has control. So when a customer asks you a question, you say, especially if it's early in the conversation, so what do you guys do anyway? I mean, what's this coaching, or what is the business that you have? You say, no, that is a really good question. Knowing in the back of your mind, question is too soon. He's asking me to start talking about my product before he feels that I truly understand him and his needs and his situation. See, that's a really good question. Let me ask you something first and take control. That's a really good question. Let me ask you something first and take control. And then you ask a question to go deeper and deeper, to delve deeper into the customer's situation to help you understand it. You can even say that one of the things one of my philosophies is to really understand your situation, your business, your needs in this area really, really well before I would even suggest that anything that I can do to help you. And to do that, I would need to know this. And what you do is just ask another question. And the person who asks questions has control. And as I say, when a person feels, just like the bar scene I just gave you, when the person feels that you really understand them, they say, your place or mine. Let's go. Are you ready to leave? And fortunately, in my single days, I did have this on occasion. But I watched the hustlers who did this all the time. And all they did was focus on understanding and feeding back to the customer. So what's really happening is your competition is really eating your sales today because they're underpricing you. Is that what's going on? Yes, they're underpriced. And your product is superior, but they're offering an inferior product at a lower price. Yes, in other words, when you feed it back so that it's clear you understand what they're saying, at a certain point, the customer assumes that if you understand my situation, you have the solution to my problem. If you understand my situation, then by extension, they make what is called a jump. It's a logical jump. If you can feed back to me and make it clear that you understand, then you must have the solution. Let's talk business. What can you do to help me? I'm ready. I'm ready now.
Wonderful. Now, Brian, we have 5 minutes to the top of the hour, and I know your time is valuable. You have another meeting after this. Do you have time for one question to end out our call?
Questions at all? Sorry to. Please go ahead.
No, these are great points, and I'm writing a ton of notes here. But I got a question in from Greg DeSimone, who's a coach in Boston, and he's asking specifically about these questions that we ask during the process, because we're talking about leads and we're talking about conversion rate, and that equals customers. We're getting to this customer issue, but the question seems to me, I'm translating what people are texting me and sending me by mail here during this call, but it seems to me that Greg is asking specifically, how do I know when I'm doing a lead generation question, setting appointments, or a conversion rate question? Where is that conversion rate question coming in? When am I trying to move them forward in that sale? Do I need different questions? Do I need more specific questions, general? How does that work?
Well, I'll give you just a very simple bottom line. Your job is to establish a high-quality professional relationship with the prospect with no thought of making the sale. This is called selling without selling. You make no effort to sell at all. You don't try to persuade or convince the customer. You just focus on showing the customer that you care about him or her and his situation, and you understand it. And what will happen, the most amazing damn thing, the customer will just say, you know, I'd like to get started. What's the process? Where do we go from here? The customer will reach out and take your hand. And you don't need to persuade. It's the most, and basically this is based on saying what you got. And you can explain, well, this is how what I have will help you to achieve these goals that we've already talked about. And so basically we use what is called educational selling. Educational selling is where you simply teach the prospect how what you're offering is the ideal solution to the problems that you and they have discussed. So the doctor says to me, you have throat cancer. And I said, throat cancer? You just about have a heart attack. What's the process? Well, let me explain to you what happens now. He's not selling me on a process of treatment. He's teaching me what the process of treatment will be to get back to my goal, which is you almost cry because you're so grateful for the person to teach you how to solve your biggest problem. And so it's the same thing in our business. Your job is to be a problem finder, a problem solver, a suggester, a teacher of solutions, and let the customer make a decision. You never have to close them. You don't have to strong arm them. As a matter of fact, customers hate any pressure. They love it when you say, what would you like to do? What would you like to do now? What do you think the next step should be? You've already explained what to do now. What would you be comfortable doing? What do you think the next step should be? And they'll tell you, well, I'd like to get started right away. If they say, well, I'd like to think about it, and you say, I always say, that is a good idea. That's a good idea. This is a big decision, and it is important that you give it some thought. Is there any information that I could add to what we've talked about that that you would need to make a decision one way or another? Just low key, no pressure. No pressure, sell without selling, and the sales will just fall off the tree like ripe apples into the basket.
Marvelous. Well, Brian, thank you. We are at the top of the hour. We're 1 minute from the top of the hour. Thanks so much for being with us. I'll do a quick wrap up here and say thank you to everybody who's joined us on the call, and of course to yourself. You know, Brian, we're kicking off a series that we're going to be doing. Our next call is September 17th. We're working our way through the formula. Today we did the customer portion of the Way to Wealth formula, and you've written a great book on that, The Way to Wealth. There's 3 parts to that, parts 1, 2, and 3. And the Way to Wealth workbook is that part 3. We just love it here. We use it for our coaching all over the world. So on the September 17th call, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going into the next part of that formula. We've done the customer formula today, and then we're going to be going into the revenue formula. So we'll be talking about some of the things you alluded to today. How do we increase the number of times somebody buys from us? How do we increase the average size of the transaction? That's really what gives us revenue. But what we found throughout the world is that people always focus on the outputs. You know, they come to us concerned. Their genuine question is, Dominic, I need more customers. I need more revenue. And really what they need is to be focusing on the inputs. And of course, that's what we'll be focusing on in the September 17th call. So thanks to everybody who's been on the call with us. Thanks very much to Brian. If you recall from the title of this particular meeting, it's how to increase your number of customers by 21%. Go and talk to your coach to do the math for you on that specific formula and show you how to do that. And we'll walk you right through how to do that. It's very basic and very straightforward, just like Brian explains, and our coaches can walk you through that. Thank you very much, everybody, for being with us. Brian, any final words?
Just the most important part of selling is frequency of customer contact. If you want to make more sales, you must talk to more people. And you do not use electronic communications as a way of buffering yourself. The most effective sales, as we say in the military, after all the bombing, it's boots on the ground that make the sale, that win the war. And after all of the advertising, which is the bombing, the artillery, it's boots on the ground. It's call the prospect, get face-to-face with them, talk to them about and ask them questions about their situation, and look for ways to help them in a cost-effective way. Remember this final analysis, especially if you're selling B2B. All they need to be convinced of is that the value, the dollar value of your solution will be greater than the cost of the solution. The greater the gap between what they pay and the benefit they get, the more intense will be their buying desire. The more rapidly they'll make a decision. So if you can focus on just one thing, focus on showing the distance between the cost of what you sell and the benefit that they'll receive.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Brian. Everyone have a great day.